Hi everyone, Noble Comics here. I got a little bit of housekeeping before the video starts. I know it's been a while since I've put out a video. I'm going to try and be more consistent with the output, hopefully maybe once a week, something like that's kind of what I'm looking at. And two, these next two kind of roll together into one about these reviews for these new books that I get. Foreign Agent review, book by Narwhal. And this is not the first Narwhal book that I've read. I also got Earthbound, but I never did a proper review on my channel. And if you've been around the channel for a little bit, you've seen I've done kind of different ways that I do reviews. For some books, I'll just have a static image in the background and talk about it, or I tried to do a handheld review one time, but I held it in, vertical instead of horizontal, so it looks stupid. I'm trying to figure out how I can do these well. I'm doing something a little bit different this time, where I took some pictures of some pages and I'm using their campaign page. So if it looks good and it works, I'll go back and do a proper review of Earthbound. We'll see. Foreign Agent, book by Narwhal. So I guess we'll start over here. On his page, this is the Indiegogo page, kind of pulled down a little bit. And I guess I want to start breaking it down into story and art. And I'll start with story. So the premise of this book is you've got these two American soldiers who are, deserters, and they're on. They find this house out in the middle of nowhere, out in the snowy wilderness. Find this house full of just some civilians. Looks like, mom, dad, and a kid. And they make their way into the house and they start staying with his family, but they speak two different languages, so communication's rough and there's some hostility. And so one of the army soldiers starts drawing to the little kid in the family, and the kid draws back, and that's how they end up communicating is through drawings. And that's how it was kind of sold to you. Is it's the comic within a comic. The foreign agent double meaning. I thought cool, but there's so much more to the story that it's gonna be spoiled. But there's so much more than just that. Because I thought going into it, okay, it's them two soldiers. It's Augustus and Piper, I think their names are, in this family's house. They're going to be hanging out. Then the people they're running away from, or the enemy army, is going to come, and they'll make friends with the people in the house, and there'll be a shootout and all that stuff. It's kind of what I figured. But it goes a lot more. I don't even know what kind of movie that would be, but it goes a lot closer to like a Hateful Eight kind of encounter, which that movie gets hate for some reason. I think that movie's awesome. But that Hateful Eight, you're stuck in a house with these people, and just human interaction causes conflict. Just being next to somebody in the small house causes conflict. That's kind of what we have. Because there's the party of the two soldiers, there's the party that is the family, and then there is the third outside party of like the enemy soldiers, which is this is one of them. He can speak English and French, so he can talk, and he's trying to turn, in this word bubble, he's trying to turn the family against the soldiers. But here's just some art I wanted to show. But story. Really, really good. I read this just like I read the last one, just one sitting, which usually for longer comics I'll kind of take a break, but read it all in one sitting. It was awesome. And it kind of carries on the style, I think, from Earthbound of, or at least I guess like the calling card that Narwhal has of very realistic and relatable humans, Like the people in his stories, even when they're aliens who don't know much about Earth and find Earth's customs weird, like in Earthbound, there's just something about them that is so natural and so relatable and understandable. And you see that in this story really well. I think it's played down a little bit more because they're just humans, and there's nothing too crazy about them. They're just, regular people who are caught up in this unfortunate situation. But that idea of human understanding and human interaction really carries over, which is funny because whenever Narwhal's on a stream or something with other big creators, usually his he's known as being weird. He's strange. He doesn't really get humans that well. But when he writes, I mean, you can tell this guy's got a better understanding of human interaction and uh, human understanding than anybody. And maybe they're right. It's like an outsider looking in kind of thing. But he really captures this. He captures this understanding of how people come together and how people act. I think it's really impressive. Um, so here's your main crew right here. And so this is Piper. He is, I guess, to characterize him, very nice. He likes the family. He likes this lady, the wife especially. Draws with the kid. He'd like to take this family with him. Augustus is a little bit less optimistic. It's more about, we're just staying here till we don't got to stay here anymore. Keep a gun on them if you need to. Let's not trust these guys. The kid's just a kid, of course. Probably doesn't. He'll only like these intruders if they're nice to him, and if the rest of the family seems to like him. She seems to like him. Obviously not at the first meeting here. And then you got sort of your dad here, who never really gets around to it. These people are inside his house taking what they want, and he never really gets along with them, and he actually becomes a big problem later on. Like I said, there's going to be some spoilers. But just the so natural interaction and natural chemistry between all these characters and what goes on. And I think it goes a little bit further to sort of this inevitability of these human interactions and human situations just ends poorly. Because later we see, so Piper hitting on the mother, they sort of have a thing. Dad catches, he freaks out, and we see that he's a bit of an alcoholic and a bit abusive and mean, and he becomes sort of a villain. They're in this, tight place, and he works against them. He kind of snaps, goes crazy, working with the enemy government as they burst in, which I think we see here. This is the continuation of that last scene when they first meet. Let's see. Yeah, that's the very beginning. But all these enemy agents that are inside the house working with the dad now, trying to sell out these soldiers who are hiding, these 2 American soldiers that are hiding. And we sort of see everything fall apart, like I was saying, sort of like that Hateful Eight, where nothing works out. Everybody dies. Everybody has the bad ending. There's no real winner. Because if you go back to the main crew that we had up here, you see what happens to them all. The person with, I'd say the best heart and the best intentions gets shot. He dies. The son, the innocent son, doesn't end very well for him either. Doesn't end well for the dad. Doesn't end well for her. In the end, it's just her and him left. And he just leaves her behind at the house, lights the house on fire, and drives off. Because he doesn't care. To him, it's never really been about the family. It's just been about doing what you need to do to get to your next stop. So I think you could write like an essay on all these characters and what their thought processes were, but that's like an overview of the story of them sort of devolving into conflict, into chaos, even though everybody, as they're together longer, get along, except for him. He sort of, obviously doesn't like these people intruding on his family, and eventually snaps, and that, in part leads to everybody's collapse. Now, you've seen the art style here from these pages, but there's some stuff I want to highlight. If you know it's a Narwhal book, the style is very unique and it's very stylistic instead of realistic, very expressionist, you know. So we'll talk about that for a little bit. As like I said, there's something a little bit different about this one, which I'll highlight more in the photos. But there's sort of a combination of one, which is the regular style of him drawing, two, 3D modeling, and then three is like painting. You can't really see it too much right here, but when they're walking through the forest, the snowy forest, the backgrounds don't look like they're real backgrounds. It's like, you know, when you watch an old 60s cartoon and the backgrounds are all painted and they look really cool, and then everything else is really cartoony, and like if there's, you know, a locker that needs to be open, it's obviously the animated locker and not the rest of them, which are painted, you know. So it's kind of like that, where the backgrounds are real painted and nice, and the more stylistic animated drawings are on top of it. And then, as you can see right here, the 3D modeling that he does throughout the book, you know, it's like a 3D house here. I think there's a good shot of the whole house 3D rendered right there, right there. It's a very cool choice of a mesh between two kinds of design. I think it looks really good. There's some of the pages. Yeah, this is some of the pictures that I took. This was the style I was going to try for this review. So I took some pictures of some pages that I like, and let me know what you think. So here's your cover. And this was one of the inside pages where I was going to highlight that 3D design, where you can see this Jeep 3D designed and the house, and then all of the style on the inside and all the style on top of it. I think they look cool. And then I wanted to point out, like you can see, if I can zoom in a little bit, the backgrounds of all Narwhal stuff, it can be like a little, no, not really realistic. It's a lot of style. It's a lot of quick lines here. But in the context, you can tell, yeah, that's the little boy standing at the door. But if you just ask any stranger who is that, you know, they got no idea. You know, what is that? I don't know. But back out. Whenever he does these close-ups, especially, like, there is no better expression and there is no better personality than a Narwhal drawing. It just looks so good. It looks so, like, you don't got to question what any of these characters are feeling at any time. It's always so apparent, and the movement is always so fluid and so dynamic. Looks really good. This was just, I think, just a random page I wanted to look at with some personality that goes along with the story, because we see them working outside with the family, getting to know the family. They're drawing to each other. You can kind of see on the side where they came to this agreement that they would use the axe because it saves gas. You know, you have the goat there, which is like a little subplot type thing with the kid who is the little kid who's getting along with the goat. So that's nice. Here we got more. This is a little bit later on in the book, sort of the main antagonist, or secondary antagonist. I guess you'd say the dad's the main antagonist. This is sort of the leader of the this fella up here, the leader or main bad guy of the army that they're trying to run away from. And then at the beginning of each chapter, it's also kind of cool, is it goes over a little recap of what the heroes have on them, our main characters, what they're carrying. And over time we see them, you know, gain and lose ammo, gain and lose different things, you know, commodities that they buy. You know, they've got the gas now, they've got the pencil. That's just kind of cool. It feels kind of like I don't know, like a video game checkpoint where they're saying, hey, you know, this is what you're limited by. You know, it was really neat. I just like to see that. And then this was kind of cool. My last picture was So obviously one of the big plot points was they speak two different languages, the family and the soldiers. So the drawing obviously is one way in which they communicate, but there's a lot of different ways which they subtly communicate to each other without having to draw or speak the same language. Like here, he takes the bag of they have this bag of cell phones and throws them the coins, and he says, agreed. There's no confusion there. It's like that, money talks kind of thing, where money is this universal language. And later on, we see this angry father, hit his wife, and that reaction, and it's like that anger and these emotions are sort of universal translators too. So it may be, yeah, we're drawing to communicate. But there's a lot of ways within the story in which they communicate through these just fundamental understandings and fundamental emotions that I think is really neat. I think it's really well not highlighted, but it's laid in there to where if you're looking for it, you'll see it. It's really cool. So yeah, Foreign Agent, definitely recommend. I think the Indiegogo page is closed, so you can't buy it. If you do have it, I mean, obviously you're gonna read it. You definitely should. It's I don't know if he'll ever do like a second chance campaign or something like that. If he does, I do recommend getting it. You're definitely gonna want to. Awesome, awesome story. I think he talked about that it's getting looked at to be a movie, and if that's the case, that's going to be awesome. Because, yeah, it's this very interesting look at human interaction and how family handles, I don't know, these two soldiers coming in, and how, bad people can lead to very bad things happening. Even if they're well-intentioned, or even if you might think that they're in the right, because, on one hand, these two soldiers don't cause too much problems for the family, but on the other hand, what right did they have to move into these people's house? So it's interesting. It's a really good story. If I had to give it like out of 10, probably give it like a 9 out of 10. 9.5. I don't know, because there's something particular about these books too. I think when most people think of these indie comics, they're thinking like Cyberfrog or something like that. And I was thinking today that Cyberfrog is like the Avengers movies, where everybody knows what it is. Everybody's probably seen it. It's breaking all the records. It's making all the money. But that's sort of it. It doesn't win any awards. Whereas Narwhal's books, like Foreign Agent or like Earthbound, that's the kind of stuff that will win the Oscars. It's kind of how I see it. Very high quality. Not to say that Cyberfrog's low quality. I think it's very high quality too, but it's sort of like a different, I don't know if it's in a different approach to making comics, but it's a different kind of comic. Yeah. Great stuff here though, Foreign Agent. It's awesome. And maybe after this I'll do a regular Earthbound review. If this works out with like the pictures and we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. And if you've read this book, let me know what you thought about it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.